At 75, Chris Norman finally speaks up about Suzi Quatro. And what he says now carries the weight of an entire era. Long before sold-out arenas and chart-topping hits, Chris Norman was just a boy growing up in northern England with music woven into his daily life. Born in 1950 in Redcar, North Yorkshire, he was raised in a household where performing was as natural as breathing. His father was a professional singer, and by the time the family settled in Bradford, young Chris was already absorbing the sounds of post-war Britain, rock and roll, skiffle, and early pop that were reshaping youth culture. With a guitar in his hands and a husky, emotional voice that stood out from the crowd, Norman began performing with school friends, unaware that this raw sound would soon define a generation. That group eventually became Smokey. After years of struggling to be noticed, everything changed in the mid-1970s when they teamed up with hit-making producers Nicky Chin and Mike Chapman. With Chris Norman's unmistakable voice leading the way, Smokey released a string of global hits. Living next door to Alice, If You Think You Know How to Love Me, Don't Play Your Rock and Roll to Me, I'll Meet You at Midnight. These weren't just catchy songs. They carried a vulnerability and sincerity that made people feel seen, and that emotional honesty came straight from Norman's voice. By the early 1980s, though, the pressure of constant touring and industry expectations began to feel suffocating. Chris wanted something more personal, something that belonged to him. In 1986, he took a bold step and left Smokey to pursue a solo career. A risky move that shocked fans, but proved to be life-changing. Almost immediately, he found success with a duet that would become legendary, Stumblin' In with Suzi Quatro. The song revealed a softer side of Norman's voice and a powerful chemistry between two artists who came from very different corners of rock. It wasn't just a hit. It was a moment that connected audiences across generations and continents. Norman went on to build a thriving solo career, especially in Europe, with songs like Midnight Lady and Some Hearts Are Diamonds, earning him a near-mythical status in places like Germany and Scandinavia. While his career flourished, his personal life stayed remarkably steady. Chris married his wife Linda in 1970, before fame took hold, and together they built a family of 5 children. In 1986, they moved to the Isle of Man, trading the chaos of celebrity life for privacy and stability. From there, Norman continued to tour the world, proving that real artistry doesn't need to live in the spotlight. Now, at 75, he looks back with clarity, especially on Suzi Quatro. For decades, their collaboration had been remembered mainly for Stumblin' In, but Norman says the truth runs much deeper. He recalls how, in the early 1970s, Quatro stormed into a male-dominated rock scene and changed everything. She didn't ask for permission, he says. She just did it. A woman fronting a hard rock band, playing bass with authority and attitude, she shattered expectations at a time when few dared. Norman admits that artists like him had to rethink their assumptions because of her. Quatro wasn't a novelty. She was the real thing, tough, funny, fiercely independent, and impossible to ignore. Behind the scenes, he knew she faced pressures that most men never had to. She had to work twice as hard to be taken seriously, he reflects. But she never let anyone rewrite who she was. Why speak now? Because age brings honesty. Norman says that at this stage of life, the need to compete or stay silent disappears. What remains is respect. And for Suzi Quatro, that respect runs deep. She deserves her place in history, he says, not as a female rock star, but as a rock star. Looking back, Chris Norman doesn't just see hits and tours. He sees a generation of artists who pushed boundaries together. And among them, Suzi Quatro stands tall, a pioneer who raised the bar and left a mark that time can't erase.